Hey guys, welcome back. Once again, I'm continuing my Lord of the Reeds series. I know I said the last vlog I want to focus on Star Wars, but I've already started this and I want to see it through. So, Book 2, Chapter 1, Many Meetings. Frodo woke and found himself lying in bed. At first he thought that he had slept late after a long, unpleasant dream that still hovered on the edge of memory. Or perhaps he had been ill? But the ceiling looked strange. It was flat and it had dark beams richly carved. He lay a little while longer looking at patches of sunlight on the wall and listening to the sound of a waterfall. "Where am I? And what is the time?" he said aloud to the ceiling.
"In the house of Elrond. It is 10 o'clock in the morning,"
said a voice.
"It is the morning of October the 24th, if you want to know."
"Gandalf," cried Frodo, sitting up. There was the old wizard, sitting in a chair by the open window.
"Yes," he said, "I am here, and you are lucky to be here too, after all the absurd things you have done since you left home."
Frodo lay down again. He felt too comfortable and peaceful to argue, and in any case he did not think he would get the better of an argument. He was fully awake now, and the memory of his journey was returning. The disastrous shortcut through the old forest, the accident at the prancing pony, and his madness in putting on the ring in the dell under Weathertop. While he was thinking of all these things and trying in vain to bring his memory down to his arrival in Rivendell, there was a long silence, broken only by soft puffs of Gandalf's pipe as he blew white smoke rings out of the window. "Where's Sam?" Frodo asked at length. "And are the others all right?"
"Yes, they are all safe and sound,"
answered Gandalf.
"Sam was here until I sent him off to get some rest, about half an hour ago."
"What happened to the ford?" "What happened to the ford?" said Frodo. "It all seems so dim somehow, and it still does."
"Yes, it would. You are beginning to fade,"
answered Gandalf.
"The wound was overcoming you at last. A few more hours and you would have been beyond our aid. But you have some strength in you, my dear Hobbit. As you showed in the Barrow, that was touch and go, perhaps the most dangerous moment of all. I wish you could have held out at Weathertop."
"You seem to know a great deal already," said Frodo. "I have not spoken to the others about the Barrow. At first it was too horrible, and afterwards there were other things to think about. How did you know about it?"
"You've talked long in your sleep, Frodo,"
said Gandalf gently.
"and it has not been hard for me to read your mind and memory."
Frodo was now safe in the last homely house east of the sea. That house was, as Bilbo had long ago reported, a perfect house, whether you liked food or sleep or storytelling or singing or just sitting and thinking best, or a pleasant mixture of them all. Merely to be there was a cure for weariness, fear, and sadness. As the evening drew on, Frodo woke up again, and he found that he had no longer felt in need of rest or sleep, but had a mind for food and drink, and probably for singing and storytelling afterwards. He got out of bed and discovered that his arm was already nearly as useful again as it ever had been. He found laid ready clean garments of green cloth that fitted him excellently. Looking in a mirror, he was startled to see a much thinner reflection of himself than he remembered. It looked remarkably like the young nephew of Bilbo who used to go tramping with his uncle in the Shire, but the eyes looked out at him thoughtfully. "Yes, you have seen a thing or two since you last peeped out of a looking-glass," he said to his reflection. "But now for a merry meeting." He stretched out his arms and whistled a tune. At that moment there was a knock on the door, and Sam came in. He ran to Frodo and took his left hand, awkwardly and shyly. He stroked it gently, and then he blushed and turned hastily away. "Hello, Sam," said Frodo. "It's warm," said Sam, meaning around Mr. Frodo. "It has felt so cold through the long nights. But glory and trumpets!" he cried, turning round again with shining eyes and dancing on the floor. "It's fine to see you up in yourself again, sir. Gandalf asked me to come and see if you were ready to come down, and I thought he was joking." "I am ready," said Frodo. "Let's go and look for the rest of the party." "I can take him to them, sir," said Sam. "It's a big house, this, and very peculiar. Always a bit more to discover, and never knowing what you'll find round a corner. And elves, sir! Elves here and elves there. Some like kings, terrible and splendid, and some as merry as children. and the music and the singing. Not that I've had the time or the heart for much listening since we got here, but I'm beginning to know some of the ways of the place." "I know what you have been doing, Sam," said Frodo, taking his arm. "But you shall be merry tonight and listen to your heart's content. Come on, guide me round the corners." Sam led him along several passages and down many steps and out into a high garden above the steep bank of the river. He found his friends sitting on a porch on the side of the house looking east. Shadows had fallen in the valley below, but there was still a light in the faces of the mountains far above. The air was warm. The sound of running and falling water was loud, and the evening was filled with a faint scent of trees and flowers, as if summer still lingered in Elrond's gardens. "Hooray!" cried Pippin, springing up. "Here's our noble cousin. Make way for Frodo, Lord of the Ring."
"Hush!"
said Gandalf from the shadows at the back of the porch.
"Evil things do not come into this valley, but all the same we should not name them. The Lord of the Ring is not Frodo, but the master of the Dark Tower of
The
Mordor."
hall of Elrond's house was filled with folk, elves for the most part, though there were a few guests of other sorts. Elrond, as was his custom, sat in a great chair at the end of the long table upon the dais, and next to him on the one side sat Glorfindel, on the other side sat Gandalf. Frodo looked at them in wonder, for he had never before seen Elrond, of whom so many tales spoke, and as they sat upon his right hand and his left, Glorfindel, and even Gandalf, whom he thought he knew so well, were revealed as lords of dignity and power. Shh. Gandalf was shorter in stature than the other two, but his long white hair, his sweeping silver beard, and his broad shoulders made him look like some wise king of ancient legend. In his aged face, under great snowy brows, his dark eyes were set like coals that would leap suddenly into fire. Glorfindel was tall and straight, his hair was of shining gold, his face fair and young and fearless and full of joy. His eyes were bright and keen, and his voice like music. On his brow sat wisdom, and in his hand was strength. The face of Elrond was ageless, neither old nor young, though in it was written the memory of many things both glad and sorrowful. His hair was dark as the shadows of twilight, and upon it was set a circlet of silver. His eyes were gray as a clear evening, and in them was a light like the light of stars. Venerable he seemed as a king crowned with many winters, and yet hale as a tried warrior in the fullness of his strength. He was the Lord of Rivendell, and mighty among both elves and men. In the middle of the table, against the woven cloths upon the wall, there was a chair under a canopy, and there sat a lady fair to look upon, and so like was she in form of womanhood to Elrond that Frodo guessed that she was one of his close kindred. Young she was, and yet not so. The braids of her dark hair were touched by no frost. Her white arms and clear face were flawless and smooth, and the light of stars was in her bright eyes, gray as a cloudless night. Yet queenly she looked, and thought and knowledge were in her glance, as of one who has known many things that the years bring. Above her brow her head was covered with a cap of silver lace netted with small gems, glittering white, but her soft gray raiment had no ornament save a girdle of leaves wrought in silver. So it was that Frodo saw her whom few mortals had yet seen, Arwen, daughter of Elrond, in whom it was said that the likeness of Luthien had come on earth again, and she was called Indomniel, for she was the even star of her people. Long had she been in the land of her mother's kin, in Lorien beyond the mountains, but was lately returned to Rivendell to her father's house. But her brothers Eladon and Elrohir were out upon errantry, for they often rode far afield with the rangers of the north, forgetting never their mother's torment in the dens of the orcs.
"Awake, little master,"
he said with a smile. Then, turning to Frodo, he beckoned to him.
"Now at last the hour has come that you have wished for, Frodo," he said. "Here is a friend that you have long missed."
The dark figure raised its head and uncovered its face. "Bilbo!" cried Frodo with sudden recognition, and he sprang forward.
"Hello, Frodo, my lad," said Bilbo. "So we've got her at last. I hoped you would manage it. Well, well, so all this feasting in your honor, I hear. I hope you've enjoyed yourself."
"Why weren't you there?" cried Frodo. "And why haven't I been allowed to see you before?"
"Because you were asleep. I have seen a great deal of you. I have sat by your side with Sam every day. But as for the feast, I don't go in for such
things much now, and I had something else to do. What were you doing?
Why, sitting and thinking. I do a lot of that nowadays, and this is the best place to do it, as a rule.
Wake up indeed, he said, cocking an eye at Elrond. There was a bright twinkle in it and no sign of sleepiness that Frodo could see. Wake up.
I was not asleep, Master Elrond. If you want to know, you have all come out from your feast too soon, and you have disturbed me, in the middle of making up a song. I was stuck over a line or two and was thinking about them, but now I don't suppose I shall ever get them right. There will be such a deal of singing that the ideas will be driven clean out of my head. I shall have to get my friend the Dunedain to help me.
Where is he? He paused and looked at Frodo doubtfully. Have you got it here? He asked in a whisper. I can't help feeling curious, you know, after all I've heard. I should very much like to peep at it again. Yes, I've got it, answered Frodo, feeling a strange reluctance. It looks just the same as ever it did. Well, I should like to see it for just a moment, said Bilbo. When he had dressed, Frodo had found while he slept the ring had been hung about his neck on a new chain, light but strong. Slowly he drew it out. Bilbo put out his hand, but Frodo quickly drew back the ring. To his distress and amazement, he found that he was no longer looking at Bilbo. A shadow seemed to have fallen between them, and through it he found himself eyeing a little wrinkled creature with a hungry face and bony, groping hands. He felt a desire to strike him. The music and singing round them seemed to falter, and a silence fell. Bilbo looked quickly at Frodo's face and passed his hand across his eyes.
I understand now, he said. Put it away. I am sorry. Sorry you have come in for this burden. Sorry about everything. Don't adventures ever have an end? I suppose not. Someone else always has to carry on the story. Well, it can't be helped. I wonder if there's any good trying to finish my book. But don't let's worry about it now. Let's have some real news. Tell me all about the Shire.
They got up and withdrew quietly into the shadows and made for the doors. Sam they left behind, fast asleep still with a smile on his face. In spite of his delight in Bilbo's company, Frodo felt a tug of regret as they passed out of the Hall of Fire. Even as they stopped over the threshold, a single clear voice rose in song. I'm not very good at speaking Elvish, so you have been warned. A Elbereth Githonio, Silverum Penamirio, Omenum Alga Elamath, Nashered Palandirio, O Galremen Enoreth, Fanulius Linathon, Nefer Sinef Arian. I hope I pronounced that correctly, although I probably butchered it. Frodo halted for a moment, looking back. Elrond was in his chair, and the fire was on his face like summer light upon the trees. Near them sat the Lady Arwen. To his surprise, Frodo saw that Aragorn stood beside her. His dark cloak was thrown back, and he seemed to be clad in elven mail, and a star shone on his breast. They spoke together, and then suddenly it seemed to Frodo that Arwen turned towards him, and the light of her eyes fell on him from afar and pierced his heart. He stood still enchanted, while the sweet syllables of the elvish song fell like clear jewels of blended word and melody.
It is a song to Elbereth, said Bilbo. They will sing that and other songs of the Blessed Realm many times tonight. Come on.
He led Frodo back to his little room. It opened on to the gardens and looked south across the ravine of the Broinen. There they sat for some while, looking through the window at the bright stars above those steep climbing woods and talking softly. They spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together, of the elves, of the stars, of trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. At last there came a knock on the door.
Begging your pardon, said Sam, putting in his head, but I was just wondering if you'd be wanting anything. And begging yours, Sam Gamgee, replied Bilbo. I guess you mean that it's time your master went to bed. Well, so, sir, there is a council early tomorrow, I hear, and they only got up today for the first time. Quite right, Sam, laughed Bilbo. You can trot off and tell Gandalf that he has gone to bed. Good night, Frodo. Bless me, but it has been good to see you again. There are no folk like hobbits at all for a real good talk.
I am getting very old, and I begin to wonder if I should ever live to see the chapters of our story. Good night. I'll take a walk, I think, and look at the stars of Elbereth in the garden. Sleep well. All right, there we go. So, end of book 1, starting of book 2. I'm now halfway through Fellowship of the Ring. I have fallen behind some chapters. I'm going to try and catch up later. But that's all for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see more G-rated content, whether Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, it's not going to go up very often, but I'm going to try and keep up with this. Go ahead and click the little subscription button down below, and don't forget to check out the links in the description box. So, question of the day. Which in Rivendell would you like best? Food, or sleep, or storytelling, or singing, or just sitting and thinking, or a pleasant mixture of them all? Go ahead and post a comment. I look forward to reading your answers. So, I'll see everybody again later, and until then, God bless. And I still need to think of a closing phrase in Elvish. Bye.